season, bring the magic of Christmas home with WESN's Joy of Christmas. Relive timeless classics from the laughter to the heartwarming moments that make the season unforgettable.
Hey, light the lamp, not the rat, light the lamp, not the rat!
Santa's coming to town!
Ah! Oh my God!
Oh, baby.
Experience the joy of WESN special productions, crafted to bring you new stories and cherished memories. This year, let WESN bring the joy of Christmas to your home.
Merry Christmas, Charlie Brown!
Catch the spirit, catch the joy.
Anchors away. May the force be with you.
Only on WESN, your content capital.
WESN.
Perspective. It's a hell of a thing, depending on whatever issue you're speaking about. And as we come close to Christmas, it's but a couple days away, and then after Christmas comes New Year's. Well, it's prime time for the fireworks season, I guess you could say. More than any other point in time, now is when you're probably going to see people looking to buy a box of something or the other to shoot out Roman candles, make some noise, a flash of light. And the problem is, with primarily the burst of noise, as much as there are times of celebration, the question is, are we really able to use it responsibly and understand one of the many social constructs we as citizens of a free society effectively agree to by being members of that society? Not to trample on other people's rights for our own enjoyment. And that seems to be something that is at times lost by members of any given society. But noise pollution is one of those things that we've had callers on this show, we've had guests on this show, and I am waiting to see how this holiday season turns out to potentially continue that conversation, or to potentially be the next leg of that conversation. I do intend to continue it. But right now, one of the stakeholders, Fireworks Action Coalition of Trinidad and Tobago, they have written to the Prime Minister urging him to protect the public, that's the reported phrasing, from the damaging effects of fireworks. Now, part of it is the legal aspect, which is also of a concern to the TTPS directly. I don't know if you remember, but when I had, one of the last times I had ASP Ashraf Ali, we were speaking about illegal fireworks and the incident where the unfortunate lady, she lost some of her fingers because someone threw a scratch bomb into her car, and I do believe there was a minor in the car at the time, so she basically had to reach with her hand to try to pick it up and throw it out, and I believe it exploded in or within close proximity to her hand. That's just one example. Now, Fireworks Action Coalition is also talking about youthful gang warfare with fireworks used as weapons. Now, I'm not too sure how much of that is a widespread concern and to what extent we need to have special legislation when we're trying to deal with gang warfare with the use of guns. I think to some extent that'll all just be all part of whatever the legal framework of trying to stop that it's going to be with regards to gang warfare, or at least it should. But let's not forget, it's illegal to be in a gang, and we know who's in a gang, and yet they're never arrested. But that's besides the point. I started off by saying perspective, because this issue apparently, at least one other stakeholder wants to give a different perspective, and that is Fire One CEO. There's another article, both in the same newspaper, and I believe both are for today's paper, where he is pointing out to the fact that we have to respect everyone's views. Now, the basic premise of that, I have to agree with. Whether or not I like when it's applied or not doesn't matter. That's a basic principle, I would say, right? To what extent now, we can't just willy-nilly say, well, because some of us don't like it, none of us could have it. We need to have a good argument, and it needs to be substantial enough because, to some extent, is it infringing upon the rights of those who want to enjoy certain things? Why can't they? But then I think he goes on and maybe overplays his hand a little bit. Because essentially, he has two arguments that I could see here. One is silent fireworks and drone displays are boring, and that it will drive, if it's not available, it will drive more people to the illegal industry. And then he goes on to say, to kind of, I guess maybe this is a third point in some ways. In some ways, it's more of an overarching point. It's more about maturity, becoming more respectful to our neighbors and treating our neighbors as we would want to be treated. Well, therein lies the problem. We already have a noise pollution problem where that is not done by those who breach noise pollution regulations, regardless of whether or not the enforcement agencies know what they are or enforce them. We know that essentially they're in breach because it's unreasonable. We know that happens in our society. So for a fireworks retailer to say, well, you know, it's not about if we should or we shouldn't. It's all about just having respect. Listen, you give people an inch, they'll take a mile. When he cuts away, the mice will play. This is not rocket science here. But we are talking about essentially rockets, just in miniature form. Society as a whole has unfortunately proven that to some extent, at the very least, there are some people who are not capable of utilizing fireworks and practicing respect for the people around them. So that kind of sinks the argument right there. And to some extent, while on a practical level, I could understand that you don't want to add to the illegal firework problem because we have an issue with enforcement of our laws, I'm not entirely sure if I'm willing to take that as an excuse. Too many times in society, bad situations are left to fester because we're afraid of the consequence of treating with them. Let's not fix the public transportation system because I might put a whole set of PH unregulated cars out of business. Really? Some of these people aren't even driving their own car, they're driving somebody else's car. They're earning a wage. They could earn a wage if we had a larger, more robust, more efficient public transportation system, like what you see in first world countries. I thought that's what we were trying to do, as opposed to unregulated public transportation options like PH taxis, which unfortunately, because of the nature of how we have allowed things to be, that's the main way for people to get home at certain hours in the night, and it's not always safe. We can't guarantee people's safety. We can't even guarantee the driver's safety. But you know what? It's fine. No one wants to actually deal with the problem. Let's just let all of the consequences fester. And with fireworks, I do think that argument, it's a similar situation. Or people will turn to illegal fireworks if we don't have fireworks to make noise. Well, we have a noise pollution problem. So to some extent, yes, I understand people might want it, but to what extent have we proven that we cannot use fireworks responsibly? I mean, we live in a society where, whether we want to admit it or not, if we are really true with ourselves, it's highly doubtful we could say with a straight face we know how to drink responsibly. We know how to drink, and then we know how to drive home afterwards. Now, to what extent do we take that too far and we just get away with it more often than not? Fireworks seems like an easier thing to disregard, though. Because, you know, who is it harming? The dogs? The babies? The people? But to some extent, the CEO of Fire One is correct. It's about maturity. It's about becoming more respectful to our neighbors and treating our neighbors as we would want to be treated. But the problem is there are people who, yeah, they'll do that because they don't care. This is how they would want to be treated to some extent. Or they are hypocritical. They are treating others not like how they themselves want to be treated. That happens in society. So to expect that everyone will show respect, most probably do. But the problem is we need everyone. A minority is enough to cause a disruption in society. And since we have issues with utilizing things responsibly on a whole, I would argue that we should consider, but not necessarily I am arguing for an absolute position of adopting right away, but we should consider and debate maybe all noise-making fireworks should be made illegal, or should be banned, or should be restricted in some way. Now, the problem with restrictions and regulations in their usage is people who utilize them and break those regulations, they tend to not face penalties, so then what's the point? And that's why I'm saying perhaps we need to consider an outright ban, regardless of what the fireworks stakeholder retailer wants and what he thinks the market will respond. It is what it is. If we want to be treated as adults, then I guess to some extent our society has a lot of growing up to do. But it's not that our society is some special case. It is basic human nature. And that's why in some cases a society will have to take more harsher stances on things, because there's always someone that wants to kind of ruin everyone else's fun by taking things too far. Now, that's a separate debate. With regards to, there's one other thing I want to get to before we get into the daily review, and that is one teenager was killed when the victim or the deceased and their relative, another teenager, were playing with a firearm. And all I will say with this, there are questions of where the firearm came from by some of the family members, from what I understand. I did not read fully into the article. The main point is this, and I do think I have said this before. If you want to have a gun in your household and you have children of whatever age, it's not about just locking it away so they can't reach it. You should do that, just in general, but you should also teach them about proper firearm safety. Because generally speaking, I think there are too many stories around the world of child finds gun, child plays with gun, something bad happens because they weren't educated. And there are many children who, educated with firearm safety, don't have accidents like these, which are potentially avoidable. Not saying that it is in this case. I do think that part of responsibility with firearms when you are in a household with children is to properly educate them. And I'm still not saying, and then you could leave it wherever in the house. No, you still have it locked away because they're still children at the end of the day. But teach them to hopefully avoid things like this. All right, let's take a break. When we come back, we'll go to the daily review. Stay tuned. This is Dr. Edmund on WES, and we'll be right back after this.
Simon's Musical Supplies Limited. We are the specialist in new and used musical instruments, carrying top brands like Yamaha, Pearl River pianos, vinyl and Sabian cymbals, Remo and Evans drumheads and Fender guitars, just to name a few. Also a wide assortment of music books, pan and accessories. At Simon's, we service what we sell. Trust the leader. Call us now at 625-6412 or visit us at 20 Board Street, Port of Spain.
Transform your home with PCU Plus. From stylish furniture to the latest appliances, we have everything you need to create your perfect space. At PCU Plus, we offer fair prices and affordable financing options that are cheaper than hire purchase agreements. With convenient locations in San Fernando, Tobago, Arima, and our lifestyle showroom in Barataria, you're never far from the best deals. Visit PCU Plus today and discover why we're the top choice for quality furniture and appliances. PCU Plus. Quality you trust, prices you'll love. Visit one of our locations or find us online to start transforming your home today.
If these walls could talk, they'd cry uncle. They didn't plan to become offices or yoga studios. But they've stood by us, even when we got a little stir-crazy. For that, they deserve some thanks. They deserve Benjamin Moore.
Having trouble Christmas shopping? Check out the Kids Shop today. For all your officially licensed kid character merchandise, we carry characters such as Disney Princess, Frozen, Spider-Man, Paw Patrol, Sonic, My Little Pony, and much more. Call or visit us on Facebook or Instagram. Nationwide delivery available. The Kids Shop, for all your licensed kids character merchandise.
Okay, and now, as always, there's some heavy, well, somewhat heavy stories to get into. So let's kick off today's daily review. The first story that I want to get into, I think this, to me, is the most interesting and the most pertinent. It's with regards to the ongoing political environment and the upcoming general elections. There was an NACTA poll recently where one of the results of that survey is that many voters, many of the respondents, over half of them felt that the leader of the party that they either support or supported, so we're not talking about the other side, we're talking about their side, they believe that the leader does not truly care for them or the country. This is quoted in the report in today's Newsday. Some of them felt that their party leader is very selfish and does not even care for the party they lead. Many are of the view that the party leader cares only for self and has engaged in decision-making to perpetuate control over party rather than to win or retain government that would benefit supporters. And this was not limited to any single party. So they're not like saying, well, the leadership of the party, and they mean the PNM or the UNC. This apparently, they checked respondents from both sides of the political fence, at least with regards to Parliament. Not sure with regards to, well, this question would only technically be pertinent to the PNM and the UNC because they're the only ones with parliamentarians right now, or at least to some extent. To some extent. I'm not sure, depending on what the phrasing was and if it would have been pertinent or if it was asked to the NTA supporters, COP supporters, HOPE supporters, etc., etc. Obviously, it would be much easier, I would assume, to find supporters of the two major parties that are more established. But the thing is, I do find the statement, and again, it's in a quote, so this is quoted from NACTA, their findings, which they said, quoted as saying, the response was shocking, right? Over half. Now, what possibly that could mean is over half think that the leader doesn't care about them, and then it's not that less than half thinks the leader cares about them. There's possibly a sub-fraction of the less than half who are undecided on that decision. So the amount of people who thinks that the leader of their respective party cares about them, I haven't seen the poll, so this is just an observation or speculation. Potentially, the amount of people that think that their leader does care about them or sees the leader in a positive life is much less than you would initially suspect. That was one of the things with regards to the Police Service Commission survey and other surveys that I've noticed. If you just look at the negative respondents, that's not necessarily the whole story, because there'll be people potentially in the middle, depending on how the question is phrased, if they allow for certain answers, if they just want to have a binary decision, yes, no situation. So there is that. But the other part of it, and I do see where the commentary on both leaders can be correct. The obvious thing with Dr. Keith Rowley is the whole situation with the Salaries and Review Commission. The obvious thing with the opposition leader, Kamala Persad-Bissessar, is the fact that she does not take interviews, she does not have press conferences where she allows journalists to answer questions. So there's even less transparency in some ways there. And in both situations, there are questions with regards to how their internal elections are being handled, both recently and with regards to the upcoming general, you know, because ironically, and I don't agree with this ethically, to pick your political leader right after the general election as opposed to right before. I mean, there's a lot of issues with the American system, but they have their primaries before the election, I think, for a reason. And they have a fixed date for a reason, but let's not get into all of that, right? But what was interesting with regards to this report and the results of this poll is how the results kind of view the potential results of the upcoming election, with the fact that it seems as though the current Prime Minister is seen as being much more successful at building coalitions or dealing with any sorts of divisions within his own party. Now, part of that is with regards to when they won the first election to get their first term in office, the report pointed out the fact that Dr. Keith Rowley was able to build a coalition with certain NGOs and trade unions and the like against the People's Partnership. So he got support from organizations which now might not support the PNM. And then also the fact that to some extent, analytically, they're looking at the fact that the internal situation for the PNM and its organizational structure seems to be at a lot better footing, whereas the other side in 2015, 2020, they say failed to unite, and now we're looking at a situation where you have two competing coalitions, potentially, right? And it has come out, there's a report, over the weekend, Kamala Persad-Bissessar says they will not be in any accommodation with Gary Griffith's NTA. I don't know why she's speaking in absolutes like that, but I guess, and also, there's a part of me that wonders exactly what is the reason for the fallout. Is it just because of the personalities? Is it different philosophies? Is it political maneuvering and jealousy on behalf of other people? And then to what extent does the whole collapse of the partnership, because it's not as though the partnership continued, it's not as though it necessarily collapsed because of the loss in 2015. I believe it collapsed because of things that led to the loss. That's a key distinction. So the poll is pointing to the fact that the PNM, its relative unity, party structure, electoral machinery firmly rooted and growing, has the advantage to win the next election, making electoral gains. That would be, I do think that would be an indictment on our own political climate, where an administration, which I would argue, whether subjective or objective measures, should not necessarily be popular. If you just want to say, because of the fact that there are two-term incumbents and it's really hard to keep your popularity up after 2 terms without some serious serious wins, which I don't think this administration has had. And by wins, I mean, serious implementation of policies with good results or projects that had good outcomes, that were on time, on budget, delivered a product that filled a need effectively, etc., etc. These are things that are hard to achieve. That's why a two-term incumbent has a hard time going for a third term, just as Al Gore. But there's also reasons why you would think that this current administration would be less popular, not just because of two terms, but because of multiple controversies that haven't been resolved. So regardless of whether or not the PNM are innocent or guilty of anything, the fact that they're up in the air, and to some extent they have allowed at least some of these things to remain up in the air, going into an election, as opposed to, if they're innocent, getting us to a resolution so that they could clear the name, they should be unpopular. And yet, the machinery of the PNM is more than enough to compensate all these disadvantages, and I find that to be incredulous, incredible, stupefying. I don't know what else to say. There's another quote. The PNM leader is cleaning house while simultaneously consolidating and expanding the party support base into almost every available social, cultural, ethnic, and economic group in almost every neighborhood, giving it the advantage in 2025. If the UNC does the same, it will boost its prospects. Here's the thing. To some extent, I think that argument holds water. I don't know to what extent the UNC is not doing those things. With regards to cleaning house, now I don't know to what extent the PNM is really cleaning house. Laventille West said they don't want Hines, and Hines, I don't know if he was unofficially said, they don't want you, so we don't want you either, or if he decided to bow out on his own. We'll never know for sure. And at the end of the day, too, I won't begrudge the man for saying, I have had a long career, and this sort of career is very stressful, and I don't need to do this for the rest of my life, to shorten my lifespan. I will not fault the man if that is part of the equation as well. But I don't know to what extent the PNM is cleaning house. There are a lot of questions with regards to its slate, and there are a lot of people who have not proven to live up to the hope and potential that they may have had in 2015. We have 2 terms of a couple of people, and they're like, why are they still here as MPs? But I do remember Dr. Shea Mohammed saying the UNC really needs to revamp itself. It really needs to get better candidates. It really needs to do everything it can, because the margin of error for the UNC is very, very small if it wants to win the next election. This is his analysis, and I would agree with him, because for whatever reason, they are coming from behind as the opposition to a 2-term incumbent. Just that statement alone, I could barely wrap my head around it. But it is what it is. This is the reality that it faces. And now we must wonder to what extent is the position of the opposition party, the UNC, and is it die hard the position of the leader? Is this the hill that she's looking to die on? Or is this the hill that maybe a deputy political leader or two is looking to die on? If they don't form a coalition and it keeps all of the other parties away from the UNC, or most of them, the PEP is with the UNC, will it be enough? Because at the end of the day, the one thing that the smaller parties have over the PNM and the UNC is that whether you like it or not, I know some callers don't like it, but I think enough of the population thinks they're the same side. They're 2 sides, sorry, of the same coin. Coin only has 2 sides. So NTA, COP, HOPE, TPP, even the PEP, Patriotic Front, all of the other groups, they don't have that baggage per se. And maybe that would be enough. Sticking on this topic, let's go to the next story quick. There's something interesting going on with regards to the whole COP situation, because last week we got a report, Friday morning I believe it was, new interim leader and the COP will be part of the Progressive Alliance with the NTA and HOPE, which I found to be incredible, because it seemed as though not too long ago 2 out of those 3 parties were looking to be with the UNC. But now this alliance apparently we ought to pump the brakes on declaring it formally, because I do believe that the new interim leader is saying, hold on, we must become stronger before considering joining any coalition to contest the next general election. Now, apparently, one of the reasons why Mr. Sinnott stepped down is because he's looking at the need for fundraising. He's looking at the need to try to solidify the COP's position, to get the resources it needs, to get some more groundswell support. So the hope is that the former leader, Prakash Ramana, will be able to get more finances, get more resources, get more volunteers, get more support. Fine. But ironically, the interim chairman, after I believe announcing positively that there's a new interim political leader, then issued a statement reported to be yesterday, I believe, or Saturday, that chairman, well, that they have not, let me just get to the meat of the matter, ratified or endorsed any position or positions with the COP or by the COP. Neither a national executive nor a national council have met to endorse the appointment of an interim political leader as per Article 17 and 18 of our Constitution. So while the interim leader is saying, hold on, we need to put the brakes on the alliance, the interim chairman is saying, hold on, we need to put the brakes on the interim leader. And this kind of puts the whole thing now into question. What is going on? This is not the kind of thing that is good for the public. Now, I don't know if Mr. Ramada either did not want to be forced in the position he didn't agree with. It's like, you want me to be the leader, and you agree to join an alliance, just before you tell me to be the leader. What kind of thing is this? Or maybe he did agree to it, and then he made a 180 for whatever reason. Maybe it's practical with regards to the state of the party, because that's the reason that he gave. That's the safest reason. Or maybe he wants to keep his options open. With regards to politics, not just Trinidad politics, but politics in general, this is where Karen would say, don't be naive. Don't expect politicians to necessarily stay true to their word, right? We've already seen people who had issues with the opposition leader come back and join the UNC. We've seen people who had issues with Dr. Keith Rowley and then sent into exile come back and join his administration and now hold cabinet positions. Former people who were loyal to Mr. Manning in his administration. I'm sure they agreed with Mr. Manning when he had his fallout with Dr. Keith Rowley. They don't necessarily agree with him now because he's not here to do them anything. So, political convenience or practical reality? And then what does this mean now? Because there's still questions with regards to is the opposition parties, all of the non-majority parties, going to come together or not? Do they need to or not? The opposition says, we don't need that. Now, is she saying NT alone? And what does it mean when, at least to some degree, elements of the COP and, it seems, Hope as a whole want to be with the NT, despite the fact that even Deputy Political Leader Karen Shishera is calling for the UNC to join with them? I don't necessarily know how this is going to turn out. To what extent is it a clash of ideals? To what extent is it politics in the works? Because there's at least up until now, it's a two-party system. If I win, I'm in government. If I lose, I'm in opposition. We both collecting checks regardless. Even if it's not necessarily anything we agree to, and even if we are competing, in good faith each general election, it's still to some extent something like a cartel. We just trade positions. That worst case scenario, we trade off, right? Worst case scenario, we're in opposition. But if somebody else joins the equation, now there's the potential for one of us to be on the outside looking in. And to some extent, I guess the PNM in their position, whether it's by arrogance or it's just, objective fact, they are less worried about being pushed to the side by a third party. Maybe the PDP, some could argue, because our politics is divided by race, could have upset their apple cart. But the UNC, they're looking at all these other third parties, and to what extent are they not just seeing potential allies, but they're also seeing potential threats? But then it comes back to something that I pointed out to, I believe, from the very beginning with this whole equation. To what extent are you doing party politics to the betterment of yourself, and to what extent are you engaged in political alliances for the betterment of the country? And then, if it's for the betterment of the country, does it matter what the banner is under which you operate, as long as it is a just, fair, responsible banner? Let's take a break. Hopefully, our media ambassador is here to join us. Stay tuned. This is Talking About the WSN. We'll be right back after this.
Do you need treatment for obesity or any related abdominal procedures? The community hospital now offers minimally invasive laparoscopic surgery done by an American-trained, board-certified surgeon with over 20 years' experience. Give us a call at 235-5479 for more information.
The Community Hospital of Seventh-day Adventist,
where good private health care is affordable.
Bill and Ruth fell in love with the Benjamin Moore color Dry Sage, but they tried to match it using another brand's paint.
I mean, it's close enough.
Almost identical, really. Yeah, there it is.
Never trust another paint to be a Benjamin Moore color.
Between the Bank and the Gutter, a novel about street dwellers in Port of Spain. This is a book to make you both laugh and cry. Above all, it takes you to that special space that only street dwellers know. In this moving and riveting human interest story, Harry journeys from insanity to sanity while living on the streets of Port of Spain. Now available at Metropolitan Books, 12 Aripita Avenue, Woodbrook. Paper-based bookshop, 14 Alcazar Street, Woodbrook. WESN, 30A Gattaca Street, Woodbrook. And the home store branches located at Barataria, Shogunas, and Eastgates Mall. Autographed copies now available on request. Also available from author Louis Lee Singh. I Used to Live in Heaven, Letters to My Granddaughters, Local Government in Trinidad, Conspiracy Against the People, and Closer to the Church.
Simon's Musical Supplies Limited. We are the specialist in new and used musical instruments, carrying top brands like Yamaha, Pearl River pianos, vinyl and Sabian cymbals, Remo and Evans drumheads and Fender guitars, just to name a few. Also a wide assortment of music books, pan and accessories. At Simon's, we service what we sell. Trust the leader. Call us now at 625-6412 or visit us at 20 Board Street, Port of Spain.
Transform your home with PCU Plus. From stylish furniture to the latest appliances, we have everything you need to create your perfect space. At PCU Plus, we offer fair prices and affordable financing options that are cheaper than hire purchase agreements. With convenient locations in San Fernando, Tobago, Arima, and our lifestyle showroom in Barataria, you're never far from the best deals. Visit PCU Plus today and discover why we're the top choice for quality furniture and appliances. PCU Plus, quality you trust, prices you'll love. Visit one of our locations or find us online to start transforming your home today.
¿Qué camino cogería si cogióle la desgracia? ¿Qué golpe no llevaría? ¿Qué golpe no llevaría? Una mujer me llamaba, pero yo no le
And we're back here on talking about WSN, the content capital, and we're joined by our media ambassador once again. Happy to have you with us.
Yeah.
I don't know if you like the timing, because there's some heavy news, but we're probably going to speak about other things as well.
Yeah.
Welcome, of course, ASP Arun.
Thanks. Good morning to the viewers. Thanks very much.
Yeah, and of course, you know, test the season to be more concerned about Christmas. So again, thank you for joining us.
Yeah.
Now, I think we do need to just kind of address it first with regards to the murder rate situation. And we're, according to one newspaper, we're one away from 600. We're at 599. I don't know how official this is, right?
Okay.
But I don't know if you could tell me, you know, how things are like with your colleagues with regards to the whole situation, because I could imagine there's a lot of pressure. As you know, we're getting to that 600 number, people are looking at the police service like, do something. And I mean, while I agree with the calls to do something, I will also admit, you know, it's not so easy to just say, do something, because the last thing I want to see is, you know, shortcuts being taken.
Right. Well, I have to check the official statistics on the murder tool. I have it on my phone. I've been looking at it. I haven't seen it. In terms of the how the officers feel on the ground, as usual, they work tirelessly, committed to solving these crimes. They are responding to several murders. They don't stop with one and they have to start another one. And it's a team of officers that works on a murder. So then, and as murders get older, they go into the cold case section. So there's a cold case section at homicide that looks at old murders, even as far back as how many years ago. And so they're always constantly on the move, and murders and the investigation keeps developing. So then you see a year, 2 years down the road, somebody getting charged.
Right.
Because then the evidence pops up, witnesses may pop up, DNA may come in, ballistics may come in, and it points to a particular direction, and they arrest the suspect and they interview the suspect and whatnot. So it's always developing. So you might actually solve a 2024 murder in 2026 and so forth. And it does develop. The people on the ground, although they work tirelessly and committed to their job, they also would feel a sense of, you know, it's redundant, it's difficult. They have what they call challenges in investigating murders as well.
Yeah, I guess because
and they're only human. I mean, they can only do so much without feeling the need to stop.
Yeah, that's interesting, right? Because I mean, yes, people will note and it'll always go viral the bad experiences with the police.
Of course, yeah.
But the positive ones would be the officers that are working tirelessly behind the scenes.
Officers. I have worked with officers in homicide. I myself, when I was a detective in CID, I would have engaged with homicide because there was a time that there were so many homicides that the CID had to assist with homicides.
Right.
So we began investigating homicides as well. And we depended on their expertise to guide us in our investigations. And I worked with some very good officers in homicide. To be honest, maybe all of them were very experienced and skilled in what they were doing. And they seemed to know exactly what they were supposed to do. And as I said, they worked as a team. So there was a team that assisted you to do everything. Canvass, interview, collect evidence. So it was teams dedicated to certain aspects of the investigation. So, and they're very intelligent, is just as the word, but they're very capable of what they are doing at the Homicide Bureau.
I mean, I guess I'm not going to ask you to answer this, but of course the public, I'm not disbelieving what you just said, right? It's just that the public is going to have questions like, where is the disconnect?
Because the public isn't aware of all the aspects of an investigation that goes into a crime being investigated. And that's the purpose of the Media Ambassador Program. to educate the public on what is being done. As simple as when I was in the Special Victims Department, one of the protocols we had in place, before we charge anybody, we would have briefings. So we would have tons of briefings every day. So the investigator and their supervisor, which is most of the time the inspector, would come to head office, or we would meet them there, or we would utilize the hybrid situation with technology. And we would do briefings. And the legal officer, we have legal officers attached to all units, most, if not all. And we would engage legal officers and bring up issues and technical issues and issues of evidence. And if we saw that there was a case, and in most cases, when we have to charge particular persons, we have to go to the DPP. And people don't know that. They think that police just grab you off the street and arrest you and charge you.
Right.
Before the charges, you might be arrested, but before the charges come, there's a briefing done in most cases.
Right. I mean, to some extent, not that it's reality.
Yeah.
But you're watching enough television, you'll know that,
Right.
Police not supposed to just do stuff on their own.
No, they're not. And the thing is, we have a number of cases that we can't arrest people for. But when we look at the evidence, we don't want to arrest somebody and we don't have enough evidence to charge or to convict, to prosecute.
You have enough to say,
you're a suspect.
They're a suspect.
We can line up a number of cases and arrest a number of persons every day. But the thing is, we don't want to give away our hand, if I could use that term. We want to make sure that when we come to you as a suspect, we have all the evidence and we have covered our bases. So basically in Special Victims and Homicide Bureau, that's how they operate.
Because if you do, then if the charges don't stick for whatever reason, the individual might have a chance to escape.
Of course.
I remember before crime was an issue in Tobago, one of the things that Tobago, I think, was being used for about a decade ago was a hiding place. They'll just go there. And I think the local Tobagoans were like, well, they don't know who's kind of not
Yeah, that used to be helpful,
here.
Now you're seeing a twist to that, Tobago, and it came out in the public domain where even the Chief Secretary would have mentioned that you all know who are not supposed to be here. And he cited that. You all know the people who are not supposed to be in your communities, and they are. And are they criminals? The question was asked, are you sure? Are they who they say they are? And we are seeing that they're going up the islands and they're going to different locations outside of Trinidad and Tobago to hide. We expect that to happen.
That's one of the kind of interesting things. It's almost like two birds with one stone. They go to hide from you, but then they could also participate there and spread the influence because that's part of the concern, right, from that drug bust in Tobago.
But I mean, definitely when we have suspects of a crime that may flee, whether or not we arrest them at the time, we would red flag them with immigration and Interpol and whoever.
And to what extent for murder investigations, as based on your experience, so obviously you're not a homicide detective, so you can't speak directly, but to what extent is eyewitness testimony really an important part of it, and the lack of witnesses coming forward really hampering some of these investigations?
It's not as dependable, it's not as a major characteristic of an investigation as it used to be. So long ago, you had the IC witness that used to put the nail in the coffin, so to speak.
Right. Yes.
Now we have DNA, we have CCTV footage, we have contact evidence, we have ballistics. We have a number of evidence or realms of evidence or directions we could take before we reach the IC, because even an IC witness may not be able to positively identify a perpetrator. So it might be circumstantial at best. And we don't just heavily depend on it as we used to. So it has to be corroborated. So if an IC witness says something and they said, okay, I saw John do it, we would have to definitely put John on an ID parade and see to see if the IC witness, if they know John that well, if they could point him out on an ID parade.
Yeah,
so even that is tested.
As opposed to someone who kind of looks like him, and then depending, they might pick the wrong person and what have you. And
so we take that into consideration. We must take that into consideration. So then when we go to the DPP, we must lay out the entire case on the table. This is what we have. This is what we don't have. This is what we're looking for. This is where the advice comes in. This is where we should point our direction. This is you all still have to get certain evidence. You all still have to go and look for this. You all still have to go and try to get more witnesses. You all must try and get this speed up. See if you can get the forensics report faster or whatnot.
Is there any concern among your peers about the nature of being a homicide detective or
Of course,
investigator?
as any investigator on the field, homicide carries with it a threat of you dealing with persons who are committing murders,
Yeah.
then you yourself might be susceptible to being targeted. As with any other investigation, but homicide itself does have a special amount of
risk.
risk.
But what about, but I was actually more, I mean, that's a good point. I wasn't thinking about that. And that adds to what I was thinking about, just the whole psychological pressure of investigating this kind of crime. And then, of course, there's the public outcry with regards to the results. And the sheer number of cases where I could imagine that, look, even if you solve one, you're like, drop in the bucket, and how much more work we have to do.
Secondary trauma is definitely a cause for concern in the TTPS. That's why we have specially assigned psychologists working at the TTPS with the TTPS, what they call it, the psychosocial unit. And they would intervene, and the supervisors are mandated to have sessions as a team and individual sessions with the psychologists as often as necessary, especially those who suffer secondary trauma from homicides, special victims like rape and sexual offenses with children, because you do feel an impact. You have, it's part of being human is that you would feel an impact. As an officer, you are trained to deal with it a little better than the normal human being. But outside of that, it still affects you.
Yeah,
and it would affect my colleagues in Homicide Bureau.
And you have faced an experience from the special victim side.
Yes, of course. We are mandated, under Ms. Garland, we were mandated to have sessions as often as possible with the social unit, the psychosocial unit, and then any officer that we recognize has an issue, whether it's a domestic, personal, or even work-related issue, we send them or we refer them to the psychosocial unit. They, of course, have to take the option. We can't force them to go. Yeah.
You need to want to have the help.
They need to want to. So they would be contacted by them and let them know, well, listen, you were referred and we would like to speak to you, and it's up to you. It's a voluntary process.
And I guess at the end of the day, you would hope most of the time at the least, right? There may be a few exceptions, but you don't want your police officers to be unfeeling people who don't care and who are unaffected.
Of course
there might be the rare few who can be unfeeling and still do the job properly.
Yeah.
But then, to some extent, it's like if you really don't have empathy for the victims, it's kind of, it's kind of hard.
Even officers who are involved in police shootings with suspects, so persons perish or even shot, the officers who are involved in those shootings are sent to the psychosocial unit.
Because that's one of the other things. It's not like every police officer has been in gunfights and killed somebody. That's more rare than
it's more rare. Yeah, it's more rare than usual, and that's why we have officers trained as often as possible on the range to get accustomed to that sense of using the firearm. Safety is a cautionary measure as well. It helps you develop yourself to get accustomed to that.
Muscle memory in a fight as opposed to having to think and move. All right, we'll take a break. When we come back, we'll continue the conversation with the ASP and then open up the phone line. Stay tuned. This is talking about the WSN show. Michael Small, ASP Arun. We'll be right back after this.
Here's your chance to win a bicycle, a ride-on, or a hoverboard. Shop at dbesttoys.com and spend $300 or more to win big.
We've got Bobby,
Hot Wheels, Gel Blasters, Ride-Ons,
Leapfrog,
Nerf, bicycles and tricycles.
Greco, and Wonder Baby.
Visit us in store at Forces flagship McBean, Movitown, Port of Spain, Eastgate Mall, and M6 Plaza Endeavour. Merry Christmas, everyone!
Having trouble Christmas shopping? Check out the Kids Shop today. For all your officially licensed kid character merchandise, we carry characters such as Disney Princess, Frozen, Spider-Man, Paw Patrol, Sonic, My Little Pony, and much more. Call or visit us on Facebook or Instagram. Nationwide delivery available. The Kids Shop, for all your licensed kids character merchandise.
My name is Dr. Stephen Carroll, the CEO at Community Hospital of Seventh-day Adventist, and we are committed to making good private health care affordable.
For all your medical needs, including dental, radiology, laparoscopy, behavioral and mental health, along with many other services, contact us for more information at 235-5479.
Community Hospital of Seventh-day Adventist,
where good private health care is affordable.
FanZone, your reliable, authentic supplier, has just gotten better. You can now visit our website, www.fanzonett.com, for your authentic wear and collectibles. The only place where you can use both your Visa debit and credit cards. Visit our website, fanzonett.com, to make your purchase today.
Welcome back to Talking About, ladies and gentlemen. We're here with ASP Room and we opened the phone lines just now. But of course, we would like to just continue the conversation on Christmas safety because unfortunately people underestimate things. And of course, not only are there concerns about the standard things like please be safe when you go out shopping, please be safe when you withdraw money and funds, please be safe when you're traveling, right? Of course, traveling is outside of your jurisdiction if it's outside of TNT, right? But even in
traveling in your vehicle,
you might be
public
going
transport,
one side of the country to the next because it's Christmas.
It's Christmas. You want to check family, friends. Take your time on the roadway. Take your time on the roadway, and be careful. Anywhere you're going, anywhere you should be shopping or would be shopping, be careful. Don't store items in your vehicle. Get it to home as soon as possible.
I think also some people might be more aggressive with their Christmas movements. Whether it is how they're shopping, when they're going for a park, when they're driving to the next shopping center, when they're dealing with people, when they're dealing with retailers, when they're dealing with other customers. And I guess to some extent we kind of take it for granted. It's Christmas, right? So everybody will kind of understand. But just because it's Christmas doesn't mean that tragedies can't happen.
It definitely could happen. It's a risk you must take into account, especially around this time of the year. So you see these risks happening more, or instances of crime would happen more around times when people take more risk. And you definitely take more risk around Christmas time, Carnival, school vacation and whatnot. So you have to be extra vigilant and careful around this time of the year.
Now, one of the tragedies that happened, I know you are not totally aware of the case, but I just want to, if you could offer your opinion as well, because there was the situation, we were speaking about it off air,
Yeah.
2 teenagers,
Yeah,
they found
yeah.
a pistol, 40 millimeter. When handling it, I assumed one round went off, so it, you know, by accident,
Right.
hit the other teenager in the head, and I believe that teenager died. The report implies questions with regards to the origin of the firearm. So
Right.
there's the whole thing about having illegal guns in the house, who you're hiding it for who, and the because I know Ashraf in the past, I can't remember if we also had this conversation with you, but he would say, listen, you're hiding guns for people, consequences could come from it. Now, he
Yeah.
was speaking about arrests,
Yeah.
but then
the entire family could get arrested.
Could get arrested,
Yeah.
but now this is an example where
Yeah.
something else happened.
This is something that happens occasionally, where persons who are in possession of illegal or even legal firearms put it in a place that's unsecured, and children get access to it, minors get access to it, even vulnerable people like the elderly and other persons who
right.
are differently able may get access to it.
Yeah, because this was in a closed hamper, so I could, or let me just double check that.
Yeah.
It was in a closed
Right,
basket.
so the details of which I'm not aware.
Right,
So I
so
don't have the details.
that's a
I
report.
can definitely confirm that a child died.
Yeah.
Right?
No, but my point is like, if your granny now finds a gun in the clothes hamper,
what to do?
like she wants to do the laundry, she's gonna pick it up,
Right.
and if she mishandles it and it goes off,
Yeah.
who knows what can happen? And I mean, it's like you're kind of, if you don't treat these things with respect, there's a lot of risk in this.
This is something that members of the public are not supposed to really be exposed to. We're not supposed to be educating people on if you find a firearm in a laundry basket at home.
Yeah.
This is not supposed to happen. But I mean,
Because if you have a firearm, you're supposed to go through this training.
yeah, training,
individually,
scrutiny, and whatever examinations you have to go through to be hold of a firearm. But when you have an illegal firearm and you put in the family even more at risk of being arrested, risk of being charged, risk of being targeted by other criminals. Because when criminals understand that you yourself are involved in crime and you might have items they want,
Yes.
they will definitely come for it.
Now, we're not saying that it is definitely an illegal gun, right? We're not saying that.
No, I have no details as if it's
the
legal.
The report questions the origin of the firearm,
Yeah.
and we'll leave that there. If it was a legal gun, then it would be height of a responsibility to just leave it in a closed basket.
Yeah, but it's unfortunate that a child or anybody has to lose their life because somebody in the household may have a firearm that's not secured properly.
And right, so the point I was making, and would you agree, you know, regardless of, well, if you're leaving your gun willy-nilly, you definitely should do this, but even if you're locking it up, once there's a gun in the house, 1 gun, 2 guns, doesn't matter,
Yeah.
you should teach, even if the child doesn't have permission to handle it,
Yeah.
you should still teach them firearm safety, what to do if they find it, what not to do.
Well, the first thing it would do with children is that they don't touch it.
Right.
That's the most secure form of education that should happen with children when it comes to firearm. They should not touch it at all. Children are not allowed, and I don't think anybody under the age of 25 is supposed to be handling any firearm, unless
Okay.
you're exempted like a police officer, a soldier, a prisons officer, immigration officer, and whoever else.
Right, if you're a young recruit.
Recruit. So they're not supposed to be handling any firearm at all, and you definitely need to inform some adult, especially if you're a minor, of this firearm being in the household, and subsequently call the police, if not immediately.
This could be where people get chained up by watching the internet, because in parts of America, I remember there was a video where a girl, she may be anywhere between the age of 8 and 14.
Yeah.
She had a pink M4.
Right.
Among the gun collection that the father had,
in the
she
jurisdiction.
had a rifle.
No, I mean, as anybody who has a firearm, whether in Trinidad or not, they would want their family members in the household to understand how to use it. Because in the unfortunate situation where they have to use it, it could happen, but it's totally legal to hand a child a firearm.
If there is
anybody
an emergency,
who is not the
if
holder.
there's a threat.
Even if there's a threat. So it in itself, it's an unfortunate situation where we don't have laws that cater for children, training children and other persons in the household who are not firearm holder users license to handle a firearm. But you definitely want to maybe tell them what could happen and what could not happen.
Don't play with it.
Don't play with it, don't touch it, leave it where it's secured. And there's an obligation on the holder of the firearm to secure it properly. And if you're leaving the jurisdiction, you have to leave it in the police station.
You were saying, sometimes kids you don't necessarily know the difference between a toy gun and a real gun, right? And I mean, these accidents, that tends to be one of the things, right, where they don't understand.
There was even a study done in the US where a child, a very young child, when handed a loaded firearm, well, sorry, not a loaded, well, handed a firearm, they did an experiment. Within 7 minutes, they would pull the trigger.
Right.
So it was...
That seems long to me.
That seems... That was just the average. 7 minutes was the average. So in some cases, it might be quicker and sooner than in some cases, but the average was 7 minutes. And even in the States or in other jurisdictions where persons are allowed firearms secured in homes, because in some jurisdictions in the States, you're not allowed to carry it, concealed carry, but you can have it in the home. And what they do, they have reached a state because they have so many shootings in families and family homes that they encourage the holders of these firearms to lock it like with a bike lock or a firearm lock, even to lock it, because they don't necessarily put it in a safe. In Trinidad, you need to have a safe. You should have a safe.
I mean, I would hope everybody does. But I guess one of the things is, you have a child, you have a gun, take the unloaded gun, it's like, this is a real gun. Feel it. So that don't ever mistake this for a toy, right?
Right. It's unfortunate that we can't say yes. That's what you can't handle.
Do that. You can't even right.
They can't handle it at all.
All you can do is show it to them and say,
yes.
That's actually kind of...
You have to be careful with that as well, because you're not supposed to expose a minor to a firearm.
Okay, now I'm having problems with the law, because I'm like, if you can't teach them properly, how do you prevent them from doing something?
Well, there's education and there's education. So, I mean, you have to come up with some form of educating your kids.
But I guess part of the problem is, you know, if it was easy to differentiate visually, kids won't have these accidents probably as often as it did. That's my concern.
Yeah.
You know, so, I mean, I guess the law assumes that locking it away is enough.
That people are responsible and they should lock the firearm away and put a lock on it and have it secured somewhere out of the reach of minors. So they don't expect persons.
I think that's the unfortunate part is it's the catch-22.
Yeah.
If the firearm is too secured, then if I have a home invasion while I'm sleeping,
unfortunately,
it does not really help me.
Yeah. But unfortunately, that's the law, or fortunately, that's the law, because they don't want the firearm in the hands of persons who are not supposed to have it.
Yeah, of course.
Now, if you're a firearm user's license holder, an FUL holder, your spouse or anybody else in the household over the age of 25 can be granted, or may be granted, the firearm user's employee certificate. So you are allowed to use the firearm as part of the household or employee of the
can they train with it?
holder. Of course.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right. Because like at some point...
No, but there's a certification process. There's a protocol with that as well. So you just don't take it up and train with it. You have to go through the protocols as well to use it and whatnot, to hold it.
But, I mean, at the end of the day, there's a part of me that's like, I know at times you're going to be desperate, but if I have a spouse and I have a gun and she's not trained with it, it might, at least before, it might have been better to say, don't even bother picking it up.
People,
you know, just give them what they want.
You have avenues such as the TRA, the Trinidad Rifle Association. You could utilize them for training purposes, and other establishments as well when it comes to family members using firearms. They may have a certificate process, I'm not too sure, where they go through training as well for the to use
facilitate civilians.
To facilitate,
yeah. Okay. Yeah. Well, let's not, you know, leave too little time for the phone lines to be open. So we'll open the phone lines now. The numbers are up on your screen. Call in. You can have your say. There's other stories that I did not get to, but while we wait for any calls.
Measures for Christmas. Again, the lastly motor vehicles. Seen a lot of those. I'm encouraging persons, or the TTPS would like to encourage persons.
Is it because of parking? People are parking in places where they normally want to park to risky?
Not necessarily. People's vehicles are being targeted and stolen as per usual. And what we are encouraging persons to do is utilize alarms, what they call the GPS devices, kill switches. Don't make it easy for the criminals. You have an $80,000 vehicle, a $100,000 vehicle. These devices may not cost more than $1,000.
Right. I mean, that's the price of used vehicles, right? And new vehicles now.
Yeah, exactly. I talk about used vehicles. So, So if you're investing such amount of money into a vehicle, please invest some equipment as well. The GPS tracking devices work well. Use reputable sources. I can't, because of I don't want to. Although I may know persons, I can't give out that information.
Right.
But
you
should.
Can't seem like you're endorsing
Yeah,
or
of
marketing.
course, definitely. But you could use reputable sources to get proper devices into that vehicle. Let's not make it easy for the criminals.
I hate to ask because I'm not sure if you have an answer to this, but how would people find who is reputable? Because
I mean, in some jurisdictions, they might have sites on Facebook and whatnot that tells you they're reputable. So you might have a list of persons, or you might have persons speaking.
Oh, right. You're meaning like groups or sites that will
definitely look at that.
That are designed to say, like a review site almost.
Yes, and that's one of the avenues you could use, because we have seen cases where persons would have even taken their vehicles to fix, and then it gets stolen because.
Right.
And I mean, this is circumstantial evidence. This is not direct evidence.
Yeah.
It just so happened that for some reason your vehicle went to fix last week, and this week it's stolen. And they knew exactly where it on hinge the key for the kill switch and whatnot.
Oh.
Yeah. So it's very unlikely that a criminal would definitely know directly where to go to undo the device if it is that they didn't have prior information. So that's why we say to use reputable companies.
So not just with installing devices, but also
secondary,
for your maintenance and what have you.
Yeah, you don't want anybody to know this information.
I mean, I think it's similar to the whole online selling situation where if the deal is too good to be true, maybe it is.
I'm seeing an article, I haven't confirmed it, where the Western Division was able to make a breakthrough to arrest persons in a sting operation concerning marketplace.
Right.
Where they were selling vehicles and whatnot. I think 3 persons were arrested. Maybe by Monday we could, next week Monday I could confirm that. But that would be very good towards fighting crime against these perpetrators on marketplace, Facebook marketplace.
Because for those who don't know, our laws do account for this. Might not be perfectly, might not say Facebook marketplace in the legislation, but there is enough laws that look, if you can be charged with something, right?
Something like what? Like for using Facebook for what?
Well, just for fraud and for if you rob someone and so on and so on.
It would be part of collecting the evidence. So if it is that you're using technology or some app to perpetrate some crime, we could use the evidence that you made a connection on that device or app to perpetrate the crime.
Yeah, I think some people might think, they have laws to govern X, Y, and Z, and it's like, no. Like some of these things, they're at the end of the day, it's robbery.
Yeah,
it's fraud.
Yeah, and once we could connect it to the device you use or you were held with, we could prove that you used it to perpetrate the crime.
And speaking from personal experience, you should not assume that just because your model is not popular, that it's not going to be stolen. Because I know that there are certain cars that the police will say, yes, criminals seem to target this more often than not. But I know of one that is not targeted more often than not that was stolen.
Yeah, so there are cars that are targeted or vehicles that are targeted for parts and for just an unusual stolen vehicle situation. But there are cases where they may steal a vehicle to perpetrate another crime.
Right.
Like murder or shooting or malicious damage or arson. They would steal any other vehicle.
Yeah, so just because you don't have one of those popular targets doesn't mean it can't be.
Yeah, don't feel because
you're safe.
You don't own a Tita, they wouldn't steal it.
We have Sanford on the line. Good morning, caller. You're on here.
Good morning, Sean.
Morning.
Morning, SPR.
Morning.
SPR, I think the last time you talked about you said you will transfer to
Transport branch.
Transport branch.
Yeah.
Right. Now, in the past, I know you all had utilized VMCOT.
Yeah, we still utilize VMCOT.
But to a lesser degree.
To some degree, yeah. I'm not
so
too
why
sure.
I'm saying that is because I am now seeing a couple private garages that have a lot of TTPS vehicles, which wasn't the case a while ago. So it seems as if because I see less of your vehicles being repaired at Wemcott when I am in that vicinity a lot, in the one in South. But the question is, I know I can't understand for the life of me why it is that the TTPS are still not going with fit-for-purpose vehicles and still utilizing what the ordinary man drives every day. When a police vehicle is sometimes, on average for the month, how much miles you will rack up on a police vehicle? I am certain a police vehicle should change oil twice a month.
Probably, plenty. These vehicles never stop.
24/7.
24/7. And,
they never stop.
But what I can tell you in respect of them, I've only been there 6 months, so I can't say we're using them to a lesser degree. I haven't been there long enough to say that we used to use them more or less.
Right.
So I can't say
at
this stage that we use them.
Let me rephrase that then. I am saying that you all is using them to a lesser degree.
No, I can't say. I can't confirm.
I am that because I noticed. You said you're there 6 months, but a while ago, probably a couple of years ago, I started to utilize some other garages.
Right.
I'm seeing much more vehicles in those garages now, and it just seems as if it is not we're not going in the right direction when it comes to those vehicles.
Well,
those vehicles take a beating, and those those Japanese things that we buying not designed for that.
Well, what I can tell you is that police correctly made police vehicles are very expensive. So I don't know if that might be an issue, but nonetheless, we actually are looking at fit-for-purpose vehicles. So we are, for these days, for the past few months, we have actually had meetings with stakeholders in different companies, like for our K9 unit.
Right.
We've actually spoken to companies like Toyota, I believe. I can't remember if it's Toyota, but let me say Toyota, some other company, to specially outfit the vehicle with to allow the K9 to operate, to rest and to be conveyed properly, mounted branch as well.
Right.
GB would have their special vehicle. So what we're actually doing now, I don't know if it was being done before, but since I've been there, under the leadership of the superintendent, Mr. Beard, is that we've been actually having meetings with the stakeholders who can outfit. So up to Friday, we looked at vehicles so that that were specially outfitted for escort. Escort, and we saw some better vehicles for patrol in the coastal areas, and utility vehicles that they, although they may seem that they appear to be better utilized in Trinidad. One of the vehicles we actually looked at was a popular model being used in South Africa, and that vehicle it won some the Cartier Award in South Africa, and because the police service, I believe, used it as such a good utility vehicle that it could take the weather, it could take the road, it could take the conditions of South Africa.
Maybe uneven terrain.
Correct. Yeah. Which was kind of similar to Trinidad. So we looked at all of that. So I can't speak to what was happening before, but as we speak now, we actually looking to get specially outfitted vehicles for different areas of policing.
Well, so we're going in the right direction then.
Hopefully. I mean, I think there's always the budget and cabinet.
Yeah. But those vehicles are pretty expensive. If you look at the ones, like the patrol vehicle in other jurisdictions are very expensive.
Like the American police.
Yeah, so like in Mexico, of course, for instance, they utilize vehicles that are heavily armored.
Yes.
And to compensate, I think they use a particular Ford or a special vehicle, maybe Chevy. And what happens, to compensate for the weight, they would increase the speed capacity. Right. And those are specially outfitted for their terrain.
And I can imagine the gas usage to just haul all of that weight around.
Yeah, correct. Because they have to compensate for the armor.
We have another caller. Thank you, Mr. San Fernando. We have another caller from Chaguanas. Good morning, caller. You're on here.
Good day.
Good day, Professor.
The last time we talked, we were talking about pension and NIS. And I pointed out that government some time ago had decided to amalgamate all their pensions, and you all promised to check it out. I don't know if you got time as yet.
No. I haven't followed up with that story, Professor.
Yeah, but bear in mind that when the NIS came out, it was supposed to go on to cover self-employed people. It never did. And in the old days, if you were carrying out any business, you were required to keep records of sales and purchases. And if you didn't, the Inland Revenue consider and assess the and charge you on that. Now, all these things have been stopped. And I know why. We closed down, at least we replaced the Board of Inland Revenue with a revenue authority. I fail to understand the logic of that. The Board of Inland Revenue, the people who get to the top came through the ranks, learned the procedures and everything, and if the government was the best people around. So I really don't see how this new system, how a revenue authority could change the position when it didn't come through the ranks. Thank you, unless you have any comments, questions.
Thank you. Not necessarily, Professor. The thing is, this is what I think is the behind-the-scenes reason. It's similar to why we went from BWIA and we replaced it with CAL. Like at some point you want to make a change, and it's too hard to make the change with the pre-existing thing, so you replace it with a new thing.
So is it that, so he's speaking about the government pension, but is it that the government could utilize like a private business or entity to have insurance, or what they call, is it pension?
The whole thing started off with the government pension, which is technically it acts more like a grant than a pension. But to what extent the minister's initial explanation is true to the actual intention of because it's a whole mess where the government essentially had to retract everything, including the minister's explanation for some amendment that they had. One of the problems with any sort of grant is fraud. Like even NGOs like Living Waters and Is Another Cause and others, they have to sift through applicants for donations because there will be people, hey, it's one per family, and then they want to try to get 4 food hampers for family. So I believe, I don't know to what extent this is pertinent to this situation, but the explanation the minister gave was, well, we put a limit so that people who aren't deserving of it can't access it. Right. But then the next day, they basically retracted that and say, well, no. The limit was wrong. It was a mistake. A staffer slipped it in after Cabinet reviewed the bill, right? And we're going to change it and take it out and present it to Parliament without it. So I'm not, like, I didn't find fault with the minister's explanation on the surface, except the threshold may have been too low, right? But it all depends on what is the actual intention of this financial implement. How many people in the population is it meant to help? Or, so if it's a widespread thing, well, then it was entirely inappropriate. If it was a targeted thing, well, it's kind of silly to call it a pension.
But the government pension or the grant, it caters for what? For persons who didn't work, or?
Well, so this, which I believe is the only pension, I'm not entirely sure. We have NIS and
because I would get a police pension at the end of the day.
Right. No. This is a separate thing of this, an old age pension. I might be mislabeling it now because I myself have confused after. I don't like how this situation used the word pension, but I'm not entirely sure because from what I understand, whether I read it or somebody said it from what we called us last week, this is also a product of the fact that they modified the pension, right? I believe under Manning they said, right? I didn't follow the story at the time, but they modified the pension and its intent and how it was structured at some point. So, at this point, I'm not entirely sure, do they want to change it? Or are they trying to get it back to what it's supposed to be and it wasn't doing what it was supposed to be doing? Like, I'm not entirely sure anymore because the government themselves, they kind of made a mess of the communication of this whole issue. We have San Fernando back on the line to close out the show. Good morning, caller, you on here?
Yes, Sean, yes. There was one other point I wanted to get across.
Sure.
Yes, Arun.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, Arun. This it is in light of this incident in with the services rig and the missing person, the missing gentleman on that
the rig that collapsed.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the rig that collapsed. Now, going back to the Paria tragedy, and this is a suggestion because I don't know what it takes to trigger a police investigation into these things. I think once there is a incident and there is some loss of life,
of course,
the police should get involved.
Right. So the police do investigate industrial accidents. We cater for that under the police standing orders. There's an actual process.
However, in the Paria driving tragedy, remember, Sean, how long it took because everybody else was involved in this for over a week before the police actually got involved.
Well,
and so my suggestion is, once it is, I don't know what triggers it, but once there is a loss, any semblance of a loss of life, the police should get involved immediately to try to investigate alongside whoever else agencies they want to put it over.
That actually might happen. It's just that you may not know that the police
The
involved.
report wouldn't.
Okay. Yeah, because I have actually attended meetings. I actually know of meetings that had happened with industrial accidents, and the police were on board from the beginning.
Right away.
Yeah, and then again, there were cases where the persons would have delayed themselves from making the report to the police, and when the police got involved. So
this is an industrial accident situation.
Yeah. But we cater for industrial accidents and loss of life. I mean, I think it might be covered under when somebody dies. Even suicides, we investigate suicides as well.
Because you need to.
You need
to
bring some kind of
you need to
closure
make sure.
to the death. Yeah, we must investigate.
The thing is, Koala, I actually do think the whole news of when the police was investigated and when they finished their investigation and all of that, it was, we really didn't know.
Yeah.
Because my impression was like we knew earlier clock, and when I say earlier clock, within that first week, so not like right away, that the police were investigating. Along the same time, OSHA was investigating.
Right.
But then we didn't really hear anything until
that is maybe
around the time when the commissioner inquiry came out.
Right, so maybe it's a PR issue, but that the police will come out and say, well, we're conducting an investigation.
Yeah.
Don't take it for granted it doesn't happen, that it does or doesn't happen.
I mean, that's one of the things. That's one of the interesting things about communications, where sometimes you have to go through the motions, and do the basic things.
And then the experts in the field of that incident, when he spoke about the Paria incident, would actually take lead while the police take a step back and look at it from, so we won't take a lead in front. We wait on the experts' advisors. Well, listen, this is what happened and whatnot.
I hate to say this, and this might just be the product of a smaller jurisdiction, but I would hope in a perfect world you would have your own experts. I know that's not necessarily practical all the time.
No, that's not practical all the time. Even with our fire, we depend on the fire services. So even though we conduct investigations with fire.
Yeah, but that's different because you are depending on the expertise of another state agency.
Yeah.
And usually the fire service is not in the habit of causing fire.
No.
Right? Whereas if the organization where the accident occurred is also the entity that provides the experts.
And the lead would have been OSHA.
Okay, well, in this case, OSHA. Right.
Yeah, and that would have been a state-appointed
Right,
agency.
well, no, sorry, I thought you were potentially like the Paria people who investigated themselves.
No.
Okay. All right, that was my bad. I made the mistake to make that assumption.
Yeah, they may have done their own internal investigation.
Right, but that's not...
Because even if we get an incident, like they say in a school, the police does an investigation and the Ministry of Education might do their own investigation.
Right.
And they would,
there will be parallel, not
to
the
some
same.
extent, not the same.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, that whole situation, I haven't spoken about it because I'm waiting for more. It's just, again, Christmas time, tragedies still happen. That's why you just, don't take it for granted and take unnecessary risk.
Correct.
All right, ASP Arun, thanks for joining me once again.
Thanks. Just want to shout out, if I could shout out anybody.
Sure.
Yeah, I have some family, some minors at home, Samir and Ara. They're baking up a storm today. So today they're baking all the cakes and all the, so I was told this morning they're making 5 pounds of fruit cake.
Okay.
And so they're doing the cakes today. sweetbreads and whatnot today, and then tomorrow they're doing the meats. So tomorrow, I think tomorrow is Christmas Eve.
Yes.
Yeah, so the chicken and whatnot.
Yeah.
So they're baking up a storm. We're talking about people under the age of 12 here.
Oh.
So
good luck with that.
Yeah. So they're enjoying it.
Obviously supervised.
Of course.
Yeah.
The grandmother supervising them.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, thanks to the callers for calling in as well. Folks, it is what it is. Although it's Christmas time, you still need to be safe out there. Make today a good day. As my coach will say, couple days left for Christmas. Don't take any unnecessary risk. Remember your allegiance to the Republic and to each other. It's nice to be nice when you're out there Christmas shopping, fighting for a parking spot to get last minute presents bought. But stay safe out there. I'll say it again. We'll see you tomorrow. Bye-bye.
WESN